This is a tutorial on using Seurat to work with generative poetry. It'll teach you how to use custom samples in Seurat and give you some troubleshooting tips. First, go ahead and open up Live and drag the audio you want to use into a blank audio track. The first thing we're going to do is slice up this audio into clips that are the size you'll want Seurat to play with.
Sang into your mouth, but there was no slug inside.
If you are using a poem, I recommend starting by just slicing between individual lines or individual words, depending on how fast the poem is being read and how long it is. The more slices you make, the more Seurat will be able to make coherent rearrangements of the existing words or phrases. If you haven't already, I also recommend slicing out and deleting any mouth noises, breaths, or anything else that you don't want in your final recording, since doing this later will be difficult.
Death. Every day.
When your audio is totally sliced up, you can go ahead and grab the Seurat rack from the devices list in the sound library.
Step into the river of your history.
And for this tutorial, we're going to want to go into components and then grab the default sampler.
Fruit is the fruit of the tree. Rot is the fruit of the fruit. I will not
select all of your clips and drag them into the sampler.
This bridge is too ugly.
You can see that I have 17 clips since I made 16 individual slices in my original audio.
Having no blood,
by default, these samples stretch all the way across the screen. I want to reduce them to just their root notes, which are at middle C. This will prevent pitch shifting. Then, as you can see, we'll just drag each of these sample clips and their root note into its own MIDI key. I'm starting from the left-hand side because the 0 macro starts at -128. This isn't strictly necessary, but will make performing live with Seurat much easier, since if you just want to move the 0 to the beginning of your sample set, all you'll have to do is dial it all the way down. Next, I'm going to adjust the macros to some default settings that will get us some sounds. Turning the throttle up all the way ensures I'll have the greatest density of sound, and turning the window to 16 ensures that I'll hear all 17 of my samples. Remember that if you leave these on zeros, you just won't hear any sound, because the sound will be completely throttled. Remember to turn the note length up, since obviously we're going to want to hear more than just 10 milliseconds of our text. Now we can close the zone editor and look at the arrangement view again. Hitting any key will trigger Seurat to start playing. If you don't hear anything, remember to check that the track is armed for recording. This density is too high, so I'm turning the throttle down as well as the note rate and the event rate.
Conch. I will not leap from this bridge. You step into the river of your history.
I like this density of sound, but the sound isn't coming in very evenly. I can hear it fading in and out. To address this problem, I'm going to head over to the Filter Global settings and look at the envelope.
You step into the river of your history.
You can hear that if I turn the attack down, the fade-in is even more extreme, almost to the point where I can't hear the audio at all.
People born inside out are prone to unraveling. You step into the river of your history. Among our vestigial traits, the brain begins to feel claustrophobic.
For a more percussive sound, you can play with the release setting, which works in tandem with the note length. Now I'm increasing the density of sound by using the event rate and note rate in tandem. They're basically two arpeggiators playing against each other. If you go into the sampler's MIDI settings, you'll see a few more parameters you can adjust manually. The panorama setting is by default set to 100, which will trigger clips individually in each ear. Turning it down will result in a flatter, more mono sound. Listen to how the text gets smoother and less percussive as I turn the note length up, the throttle down, and the note rate and event rate down.
Rot is the fruit of the fruit. Having no blood, a ship, a wound, may be seen as an attempt to form gills. This bridge is Too ugly. I will not leap from this bridge. Some people
The velocity settings in the MIDI panel also allow you to adjust the sample offset. This tells Seurat to start each clip from somewhere inside the clip rather than at the very beginning. If you set it to 100, you'll get the most extreme offsetting, with Seurat randomly choosing a place to start playing the clip.
Wisdom tooth, death, leap from this bridge.
This can have the effect of turning the language into a more textural element, where the content isn't as intelligible.
There was no slug inside to adjust the darkness.
If you limited the sampler to just the root notes of the clips like I did in this tutorial, you can still mess around with pitch here.
Having no blood, this bridge sang into your mouth, but there was no slug inside.
Among our vestigial traits
Is the fruit
is
of the
What if we want to record the audio from our Seurat rack? Make a new audio track and set the Seurat rack as the input. Make sure they're both armed for recording and hit record.
Conch. Sang into your mouth.
You can see that I recorded some audio, but now Seurat doesn't seem to be playing. Seurat can sometimes get a shy bug. If this is happening, I recommend just turning up the throttle, the note rate, and the event rate until you get audio again. You can also, once again, hit a key on your keyboard to trigger the MIDI. Remember that these macro settings are yoked to the BPM of your entire project. If the audio just doesn't seem to be working, you can try turning the BPM of the project up. Now I'm getting some audio, but it's still pretty quiet. The first place I would check is the filter global settings. The default is -12, so I'm just going to adjust it back to 0. I think I want a dense sound, so I'm going to turn the throttle, the note rate, and the event rate up, and then hit any key to trigger the MIDI.
Sang into your mouth.
Now you can see that the audio is recorded. Automating Seurat's performance in MIDI form can be pretty tricky. I usually like to just record my performance live as I adjust the dials and go straight to audio as soon as possible.
This bridge every day. I will not this bridge having no blood. Among our vestigial traits for years. Coccyx, wisdom tooth, death.
Death, I like that ending, so I'm going to turn the throttle all the way down to make sure he doesn't play anything else. And if I like these settings, I can always rename my Seurat rack and save it as a new device. You can see that even if I delete everything, I can always reload this device, hit a key to trigger the MIDI, turn the throttle up, and Seurat will start playing again.
The brain begins to feel. I will not some people, they're born inside out, are prone to unraveling.